dawn over Ramadi, and something has gone horribly wrong. A house full of insurgents is pouring fire on an American position. Grenades, machine guns, a tank rolling up to level the building. Then the radio call that turns a commander's blood to ice. The men trapped inside that house are his own. Somehow, in the fog of that morning, his snipers had been fighting other friendly troops. One man is already dead. Another is bleeding from the face. And the officer who planned it all knows what usually happens next. Someone gets relieved of command. Someone gets blamed. What he says in the debrief instead would rewrite how the Navy SEALs, and one day, boardrooms full of executives, define what a leader actually is. Picture the room afterward. Everyone braced for the hammer. And there was plenty to point at. A rogue Iraqi unit off the plan, bad timing, faulty intelligence, the chaos of a city where every rooftop hit a gun. Every excuse was true. Jocko Willink, the commander, laid them all out. Then he threw every single one away. Whose fault was this? He asked. And he answered his own question. There is only one person to blame, he said. Me. Not the intel. Not the Iraqis. Not the young shooter who pulled the trigger. Him. The man in charge owns the outcome. All of it. He called it extreme ownership. And here's the strange part. Instead of destroying his authority, it made his team trust him more than ever. Before we go further, you need to know where these lessons come from, because this isn't theory scribbled in an office. Ramadi, 2006, was one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Insurgents attacked 30, 40, 50 times a day. Task Unit Bruiser, Jocko's SEALs, alongside Leif Babin, fought street by street to take the city back. They won. But 3 of their best did not come home. Remember those names? Because we'll return to them. Every principle in this book was tested where getting it wrong meant a folded flag handed to a mother. That's what gives it weight. These men learned leadership in a place that punished every mistake instantly, and then they discovered the very same rules run the civilian world. So, what is extreme ownership? It's brutally simple and almost impossible to live. The leader owns everything in their world. Everything. The mission failed because the plan was bad. You wrote the plan. A subordinate underperformed. You didn't train or check them. You weren't given enough resources. You didn't fight hard enough to get them. There's no one else to blame. Willink and Babin draw a hard line. There are only 2 kinds of leaders, effective and ineffective. And the difference isn't talent or charisma. It's whether, when things go wrong, you look outward for a scapegoat or into the mirror. Which raises an uncomfortable question the SEALs answered at Bud S, the crucible where they're made. Hell Week. Boat crews of exhausted men hauling 300-pound rubber boats on their heads through freezing surf, racing each other. One crew wins everything. One crew loses everything. Cursing, quitting, falling apart. So the instructors run an experiment. They swap just the leaders. Nothing else. Same tired men, same boats. And the worst crew, under the winning crew's leader, suddenly starts taking first place. The lesson lands like a slap. It wasn't the men. It was never the men. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. When a team underperforms, the leader must own it, because the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. As Babin puts it, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. But you can't lead men into gunfire on a lie you don't buy yourself. Jocko learned this when he got an order he hated. Fight alongside barely trained Iraqi soldiers, right in the middle of his own operations. His gut reaction? Absolutely not. It felt like a liability that could get his men killed. So he did something most people skip. He pushed up the chain and demanded to understand why. And the answer made sense. The only way America ever leaves Iraq is if Iraqis can hold it themselves. Once Jocko believed, he could make his SEALs believe. That's the rule. If you don't understand the mission, you can't sell it. And a leader who can't sell the mission has already lost. Now watch what happens when a leader forgets all this. A hotshot unit rolls into Ramadi, well-equipped, high on its own reputation. They refuse to share their plans with the battle-hardened soldiers already holding the line. They talk down to men who'd been bleeding for that ground for months, 2 weeks. That's how long before the army colonel running the camp threw them out entirely. Ego did that. Willink is blunt. Ego clouds everything, and the hardest ego you'll ever have to manage is your own. The moment you're too proud to take feedback, too proud to admit you're wrong, too proud to ask the veteran beside you what he knows. You've stopped being an asset and become the threat. Humility isn't weakness. It's the price of staying alive. Notice what those first 4 principles have in common. Ownership. No bad teams. Believe. Check the ego. Not one of them is about the enemy. They're all about mastering yourself first, winning the war inside your own head before you ever step outside the wire. But mindset alone doesn't win a firefight. You also need tactics, a handful of simple, repeatable rules that a team can execute when everything is exploding around them. The SEALs call them the laws of combat, and the first one is the difference between a group of individuals and an actual team. Cover and move. It sounds like a gunfight term, and it is. One element covers while another advances, then they switch. But underneath, it means one thing: teamwork. No unit wins alone. Babin learned it the hard way when he left one sniper team exposed because another team stopped covering them, and a firefight erupted on the walk home. In business, it's the department that hoards resources, blames the branch across the hall, treats the other team as the enemy. Willink's fix is a mental reset. The enemy is outside the wire. Every team inside your organization exists to support the others. The moment your people start fighting each other, they've forgotten who the real competition is, and the mission dies in the crossfire. Second law, keep it simple. In one operation, a plan got so complicated, so many moving parts, so many contingencies, that when the shooting started, no one could execute it. Simplicity saves lives. Because here's the thing nobody plans for. The enemy gets a vote. Your beautiful, intricate strategy meets reality. Reality shoots back, and complexity collapses. Willink saw the same disease in a factory whose bonus plan was so convoluted, the workers it was meant to motivate couldn't even understand it. So it motivated no one. If your people can't repeat the plan back to you in a sentence, it's too complicated. Strip it down. Clear, concise, simple. When chaos hits, simple is the only thing that survives. Third law, and this is the one you'll use tomorrow. They called it the hornet's nest. Trapped in a building, taking fire from every side. Then it gets worse. A bomb wire to the only exit. Then worse again, a man crashes through a weak roof and falls. Everything failing at once. In that moment, the instinct is to freeze or to try to fix all of it and fix none of it. So Jocko drilled a phrase into his men. Relax. Look around. Make a call. Don't drown in 10 problems. Pick the highest priority, the one that kills you first. Solve that, then move to the next. When life throws everything at you simultaneously, you don't need to do everything. You need to do the most important thing right now. Fourth law, and it nearly ended in catastrophe. A vehicle radios and that it has enemy snipers spotted in a building and it's about to open fire. But something nags at Jocko. He forces a pause. Recount the buildings. Confirm. And in those 10 seconds, the truth surfaces. The enemy snipers were his own SEALs. One order, seconds from friendly fire. The lesson? No single leader can see everything. So you break the team into small groups, each led by someone who knows the overall intent and is trusted to make the call on the spot. Decentralized command. Leaders don't ask permission for every move. They understand the mission so deeply, they act like the commander would want. That only works if the leader has made the why unmistakable. Which brings us to sustaining victory, the part that keeps you winning after the adrenaline fades. First, planning. A kidnapped Iraqi teenager, a rescue mission, and intelligence arriving late. Booby-trapped yard, machine guns dug in. A sloppy team dies here. But the SEALs ran a disciplined process. Analyze the mission, identify every controllable risk, plan for it, and brief it so the newest man understands his role. They hit the house by surprise. The hostage came out alive, not a shot fired. That's what a repeatable planning process buys you. You can't control everything, but you can systematically strip away the risks you can control. So when the enemy's vote comes in, you've already stacked the deck. Here's one almost every professional gets wrong. Babin was furious at his headquarters. Endless emails demanding updates, questions that felt like distrust from people who didn't get it. Sound familiar? Every time you've cursed corporate management, the higher-ups. Jocko reframed it completely. If your boss isn't giving you what you need, whose job is it to fix that? Yours. Leadership doesn't only flow down, it flows up. You manage your leader by feeding them the information and confidence they're missing, not by resenting them. And downward, the same ownership. Make sure every person below you knows not just what to do, but why. Don't march in asking what you should do. Walk in and tell them what you're going to do. Now the hardest call of all. A SEAL sniper, one of the best there ever was, has a man with a scoped rifle in his crosshairs. A ground commander is on the radio, pressure rising, telling him to take the shot. Every instinct says the man is the enemy, but the target hasn't been positively identified, and Babin holds. He will not fire. And it's a good thing, because that man in the scope was an American soldier. A map misread by a single city block. Willink's point cuts deep. Leaders must decide with the information they have, which is never complete, and never let emotion or pressure make the call. Sometimes the most decisive, courageous thing a leader can do is refuse to pull the trigger. And the final principle is the one that ties it all together. 3 words Jocko lives by. Discipline equals freedom. It sounds like a contradiction. Doesn't discipline mean less freedom? But watch, a search operation that was pure chaos, 45 minutes of ransacking, evidence missed, so they imposed a strict, disciplined procedure. Every man assigned a role. Every room worked the same way. Suddenly, the same search took 10 minutes. Discipline didn't cage them, it freed them to do far more. The disciplined leader wakes early, plans, trains, holds the line, and buys the freedom to act, adapt, and win. Rigid habits, paradoxically, create flexibility. The chains you accept are the ones that set you loose. But discipline hides a trap, and it's the subtlest idea in the whole book. Great leadership isn't a fixed position, it's a balance on a knife's edge. You must be confident, but never cocky. Brave, but not reckless. You must own everything, yet empower others to lead. You lead your team, but you're not their best friend. Push hard, but not so hard you break them. Willink calls it the dichotomy of leadership. Every strength taken too far becomes a weakness. The leader's real job is constant calibration, reading which way to lean in each moment. As he puts it, a good leader has nothing to prove, but everything to prove. That tension never resolves. Living inside it, that is the craft. Now, I owe you those 3 names. Mark Lee, the first SEAL killed in Iraq, cut down covering his brothers. Mike Mansour, who threw himself onto a grenade so the men beside him would live. And Ryan Job, blinded by an enemy sniper who refused to let it end him. He climbed a mountain, earned his degree, built a life, before dying from complications of surgery years later. These were the men behind the principles. This is why Willink and Babin carry ownership like a weight they'll never set down, because they led men who gave everything. Every lesson in this book is a debt to them. Leadership, done right, is not a management technique. It is a sacred responsibility for the people in your care. So how did a book about a war become a Bible for CEOs? Because the moment these SEALs left the military and started advising companies, they found the exact same failures in different clothes. The executive who blamed the market instead of his strategy. The manager who tolerated mediocrity and called it kindness. The founder who kept a failing division alive out of loyalty to a friend, quietly sinking the whole company, until someone made him see that protecting one meant endangering all. The stakes look smaller in an office. No one dies over a quarterly report, but the mechanics of winning and losing are identical. Own your outcomes or drown in your excuses. There is no third option. So here's where it all lands. Every one of us right now is telling ourselves a story about why things aren't working. The boss, the economy, the team, the timing, bad luck. And every one of those stories might even be true. That's what makes them so seductive. Extreme ownership asks you to do the hardest thing a human being can do with the problem. Stop looking out the window for someone to blame and look in the mirror instead. Not because everything is your fault in some cosmic sense, but because the only variable you can actually control is you. And the instant you own it, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the author of them. Remember the question from the very beginning. Why would owning your worst failure make you stronger, not weaker? Now you have the answer. Blame is a prison. As long as it's someone else's fault, You're powerless, waiting for the world to change. But the leader who says, "It's on me," holds the keys. If it's on me, then I can fix it. I can plan, train, adapt, and win. There is no one else to blame. And that is the most liberating sentence a leader will ever say. Jocko took the blame for the worst day of his career, and it didn't break him. It made his men follow him anywhere. Discipline equals freedom. And so, it turns out, does ownership. The next time something in your life goes wrong, really wrong, catch the reflex. Feel yourself reaching for the excuse, the name, the reason it wasn't you. And then try the SEAL's answer instead. 2 words, on me. Own it, and watch what happens to the people around you. If this hit home, the natural next read is Jocko's follow-up, where he goes deeper on that knife's edge balance, the dichotomy of leadership. But for now, sit with the one idea that turned a losing team into champions, in a war and in a boardroom. There is no one else to blame. Take extreme ownership, and go win.